I'm here to talk to you about singles. Welcome on in Dragonfolk. I hope we're all having a fantastic day today. Thank you all for being here. I do really appreciate it. If you're enjoying my content on my channel, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We have a Patreon down below as well. If you guys are interested in something like that, I always appreciate the support. I love seeing all your bright and beautiful faces in the comment section below, so thank you for being here. So, we're going to talk about doing some singles investing. So we had a previous video recently talking about the collectability, or more so the investability of sealed product, right? Sealed product is the hottest thing in order for you to make the most gain. But some people don't want to go and get a whole bunch of boxes and take up a whole bunch of space. So if you don't have a lot of space, starting with singles is a great way to do it too. So single market is, there's a ton of cards and singles that you can collect and invest in as something that is going to be guaranteed to make some good money. So how I view this is in three categories, right? There are three categories of singles that are worth investing in, right? And when I mean investing, right? Not collecting, not using for play, investing, okay? So we're not talking about collecting or playing right now, just investing. In case you didn't get the point, we're investing, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is land. So land is a fantastic thing to start investing into, and frankly, land is always going to be a fantastic thing to invest into. Now, I don't mean that plot behind your house, you know, with the dirt pile. I'm not talking about that land. I'm talking about land, non-basic lands in Magic the Gathering. Hell, even basic lands, depending on the art, it's a great thing. I mean, look at the Yukio lands from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, or the new lands coming out from Unfinity, or the stained glass lands from Dominaria United. There's reason to have basic lands for things, right? But I don't normally suggest buying a whole bunch of basics unless you're going to use them. But we're going to talk about land. So, and this all kind of ties into the same kind of talk, but I mainly wanted to go over, the certain tiers of land, right? So we're going to start from the bottom, and we're just going to talk about just general basic non-basic lands, right? Basic, non-basics, you know what I mean? A lot of non-basic lands are used in decks. More non-basic lands than actual basic lands. Are you guys sick of me saying basic yet? I know I am. Anyway, you have lands like Shocklands from the Ravnica series. You have things like Fetchlands from all the Zendikar, and then you have that they all just got, or at least half of them got a reprint in Modern Horizons 2. So when I talk about land, right, that's like a bottom tier level, right? Specifically, if you're looking for fetches and shocks, right? Fetches and shocks are a great way to start as far as land goes. You can go into triomes as well. Triomes are the 3-colored lands from Ikoria and also from New Capenna. Fantastic way to start by just even getting the base versions of those lands, right? Now, for those specific ones, the shocks, the fetches, the triomes, those ones you're actually going to want to try and aim for the more flashier version of them, right? If you're talking about real investing. If you're budget investing, which again is an oxymoron, but for the sake of, conversation, it's a good place to start. For budget investing, you can buy the base set version of them. If you can really afford it, you can get it in foil. But a lot of people will like the newer, flashier versions of the land because that is going to look cooler in their deck, right? Like, that's just the whole point. People have land, they use that land for these specific things, and, they got to know what they're looking for, right? So when you look at things like Modern Horizons 2, right? And they came out with the enemy Fetchlands. The enemy Fetchlands got a lot of printings in there, which brought down the price of lands, or of those specific Fetchlands, significantly. Those land prices plummeted. But the odds are they are going to be probably going back up, and have steadily been going back up, actually, as far as things have gone. There's a lot of people who would much prefer the retro frame version of it that came out of that set. So there's an extended art version of it and a retro frame version of it. It seems the retro frame foil etched, as well as just the regular retro frames themselves, foil in traditional foil or non-foil, are going for more strictly because of looks alone. This is the same process I assume is going to happen with Unfinity when they come out with those borderless full art Shocklands. Those are going to be a hit, and they're probably going to have a pretty high premium. So if you are going to sell them, I say wait until... I say if you pull any, right? If you're pulling anything from boxes, if you happen to get some stuff from Unfinity, don't just immediately sell those lands. Keep that stuff, right? Again, our investing strategy is to go over, and keep things. We want to keep things for at least 5 years and see how they appreciate in value over time. Now, if something is leaked, or, something that might bring down the price of those lands, like let's say they're going to print a new set with the Unfinity lands that, are going to have 2 Unfinity, borderless Shocklands in every pack, right? Yeah, sell that, right? Get that out of here, because it's obviously going to be very, very, it's a toxic asset. It's going to go down to like $2, and it's not going to be worth any money, right? You sell that. But they are still necessary. So if you are looking to just sell the one you have for a higher price and then buy them when they're really, really cheap, your option is still there. They're still going to be well sought after cards, even if they're a low price, just like the Fetchlands are, right? These Fetchlands are probably going anywhere from like $12 to $15 or something for the base versions of themselves. That is pretty good, if I'm being honest. And even at $30 for a foil etched version of some of these Fetchlands, I mean, I don't know how you don't pick that up, you know what I mean? Like, I personally picked up these guys. These borderless bounce lands from Double Masters 2022. I picked up a playset of each because, frankly, I think they're really cool. And it's probably going to be the coolest looking bounce land on the block for a long while. So why not pick it up while they're, $1 a piece, $2 a piece for foil, and utilize that to see how the market takes them into the future, right? Bounce lands aren't used anywhere near as much as fetches or shocks, or triomes, but they are really good, right? And they're really good as far as budget players are concerned, I should say. So that is, those very basic lands, non-basic basics, like base set lands is what I mean to say, right? Then we move on to the next set of lands, which is stuff like expeditions, right? Expeditions are those same lands that we were talking about, the fetches, the shocks, the whole thing. But those lands are all very, very hard to find because they were specific to box toppers. They were specific to, like certain sets in their collector versions. We're looking right now kind of at the Zendikar Rising and the Zendikar expeditions. Now, Zendikar Rising had a few of the expeditions from the Battle for Zendikar expeditions, but not all of them. So there's not a whole lot of overlap between the two. I believe they had the same enemy Fetchlands, but I think the expeditions from Zendikar had shocks, and the expeditions from Zendikar Rising did not have shocks. So that is something to look at, but both of these things are well sought after land types. It contains all those crazy non-basic lands that everybody loves to have in their deck. They have cool bordered frames, and like I said, they're they're one of the cooler versions. But more importantly, they're harder to find. Right? Finding a retro frame Scalding Tarn is easier than finding a expedition of Scalding Tarn. And that is just how the cookie crumbles as far as like a foil one, right? So you got to keep that in mind as far as like exclusivity, because you want to have the rarer version, but also the one of the prettier versions also helps too. So those are expeditions. Expeditions that next little level as far as land goes. Now, at the top of the tier is the reserved list lands. So reserved list stuff, obviously things like dual lands are a super important thing to the, I mean, the economy is hungry for dual lands. And so most of the ones that you find online, you can't even find near mint. Most of them are moderately played, heavily played. You know, some you might even be able to get lightly played, but they go for hundreds of dollars in order for that to happen. And there's no foil version. It's just that, right? But they're on the reserved list, and they're never going to be off the reserved list because the reserved list isn't going anywhere. And that is going to, that makes them even more rare, right? They're more rare to find, and there's not a whole lot of them in the ecosystem as of currently, right? So those are the top dog investing lands. You do also have other lands from the reserve list, things like City of Traders, City of Shadows, Soldevi Excavation. I believe that's the land. Yeah. So those are all good picks because they're all on the reserve list and they're all land. Now, are City of Traders and City of Shadows and Soldevi Excavations used as many as these dual lands? No, not at all. But they are lands nonetheless, and you should always invest in land. Always. 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 There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just land. The next thing we're going to talk about as far as singles go is the modern reserved list. So the modern reserved list are things like newer cards that are printed in a way that the odds of them being printed the same way in a new set anytime soon are so incredibly low that we all feel pretty safe in doing some kind of investment with them, right? We look at cards like the Amonkhet Invocations, the Kaladesh Inventions, even those Zendikar Expeditions we were talking about earlier. Those are all masterpiece cards, right? The masterpiece cards are a great way to start. You also have things like the ampersand promos from Dungeons and Dragons, right? Those are very rare and hard to find and are going for, at least like almost $30 at a minimum, starting at $30, all the way up to like almost $1,000 for a Tiamat in the ampersand foil. So that is something to look forward to. You do also have the ever infamous still Hiritsugu Devouring Chaos in its neon ink cards. Of course, the red is still holding the highest premium because it is the most rare card to find out of the entirety of the set. So that is something to look into as well. Those are specifically things that will never be reprinted that way. You could even start investing into the blues and the greens if you really wanted to. And while they are not as rare as the red one is, those are still things to look at as far as, keeping a position for something to go up in price as the years go on, as collectors start wanting these things. So that's what I mean by the modern reserved list, right? There's a lot of cards that have been printed that are not going to be printed the same way ever again. I mean, like, look at the Soul Ring from Kaladesh Inventions, right? That card goes for $800 right now, and it's going to continue to go up because I doubt we're ever going to see a Soul Ring printed exactly like that ever again, if not at least for the next, 30 years, probably, right? So everybody's trying to one-up themselves with their own foilings, and they're trying to do all this stuff, so those are things to look after. Now, on to the big hit, right, which is something that, of course, everybody should be well aware of by now because I've mentioned it in a bunch of other things. If you are going to invest in singles, the reserved list is probably your safest bet as far as investing into singles. Now, again, the reserved list is a list of cards that are not going to ever be reprinted. And they won't be, and no card in the future will ever be printed with the same kind of, art and text and name as the cards that are in these reserve lists. So what that means is that these cards that are on the reserve list here, they're one of a kind now. There won't ever be a chance to get any more. Unlike those lands are going to be reprinted all the time. Like cyclically, they're going to be reprinted. And they are going to get more and more versions of themselves to become more and more affordable to the player base. But the flashier ones will always hold their value, or at least hold a decent amount of value, which is why if you're going to invest, you invest in the flashier looking ones. Same goes for the modern, reserve list stuff, right? You're not going to invest yourself into the base version of a card like Sol Ring, because Sol Ring is printed so often and it comes in every single, precon that you get for Commander, that there's no reason for you to invest in it, right? It's available to everybody, no matter what. So not something to invest into. But the Kaladesh Inventions Sol Ring, that is something to invest into, because that is going to be something that is one of a kind and people will want in the future. But the reserve list includes things like, I always go and talk about the Power 9, right? But let's just forget the Power 9 for a second, right? Let's go back into those reserve list lands, right? You've got the dual lands from Revised, which are the cheaper versions of those lands. You've got the lands from just about any of these sets, right? Any of the non-basic City of Traders, City of Shadows, that's old Devi Excavations. There's tons of others, and more importantly, there are other cards from these things. Now, if you're interested in being a high rolling investor, right, and you have a lot of money, a lot of capital, you have something to start high and then work your way into other means, I suggest looking at stuff such as Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen sets are Arabian Nights, Antiquities, Legends, and the Dark, right? Now, the Dark is the least expensive one to get into currently. There is maybe, I think it takes maybe a whopping $400, $450 to buy the entirety of one of each card from the Dark, right? Which is crazy to me because it's a set that came out in 1994. Did it have a higher print run? Yes, but it's not so high to the point where they wouldn't have considered it a Four Horsemen. You know what I mean? It's still a very popular set amongst collectors, and people really do enjoy the Dark. I think what's happening is I view it like a wave, right? Like Alpha, Beta, Unlimited is there's a fog, right? There's whatever little scattered pieces are left, right? That's what, I guess we should start over here. Whatever scattered pieces are left of ABU, right? That's where this is, right? You can pick up a little bit here and there from reserve lists, but not a whole lot. Not a lot of reserve lists is there. It's trickling now kind of more into Arabian Nights and into Antiquities. Things just kind of are slowly but surely starting to get eaten up. And the next ones that are on the list there, right? The next ones that are pushing through. Legends is going to be weird because they're coming out with Legends cards in Dominaria United, but is that going to push people to want to buy more reserve list cards from Legends instead of buying Legends, instead of buying Dominaria United boxes to try to get a Legends card from them? So those are probably going to twinkle into existence, and they're going to be, they're going to start being eaten up, which means the next thing on the list is the Dark. If you are, again, a budget investor and you want to invest in something that is quite literally still a part of the Four Horsemen, I suggest getting stuff from the Dark, specifically the reserve list stuff from the Dark. If you are looking to just get cards that are going to probably go up in value as time goes on, you can even look into the commons and uncommons from Arabian Nights. Those are going up in price. They're not on the reserve list, but old cards are old cards at the end of the day. So picking up things like that is also a fantastic thing. Vintage in general, like this just should be reserve list / vintage, because that's kind of the whole concept. Vintage stuff is where you should start. And even if you don't have a very high budget, vintage is still where you should start. There's plenty of reserve list cards like in Tempest. Mirage has Catacomb Dragon for $8 a piece. City of Bazaar is is that City of Bazaar? Is that what that is? Yeah, I think that's what that is. That is, it's like $9 a piece last time I checked. So it's important that you choose what you're willing to get yourself into. And I think with vintage stuff and reserve list stuff specifically, if you Google the reserve list, you can find things on the reserve list. And I think a good way to start, if you don't know much about the reserve list or Magic in general, just find a card you like. Find a card that looks cool, right? Whether or not it's the art, maybe you like the idea behind the effect. Maybe you just like the colors. Maybe you like the fact that there's a dragon in the picture, right? There's tons of reserve list dragons for you to pick up. So that is something to look into to kind of start your little collection. And as you go on, you can start buying things like, anywhere between like 8 and 12 of them, like a month, if you can afford that. And that is a pretty significant pull from the market, right? Eventually, you'll have a pretty high position as far as that goes, and the price will change and fluctuate the less that is on the market, right? The less cards that are on the market, the higher the price will become. If the price becomes higher, right, you have a position and you can choose what price you want to sell these cards at. Unless, of course, everybody decides they want to sell what they bought at that exact same moment, and the price will go down again. So, supply and demand at its finest, but that's just kind of how things go. So, that is my whole thing for singles. I hope I went over everything. There's a lot more that I can go into as far as specific cards to look into. Like I said, though, if I were starting with, even if I had like $1,000 or something, if I had $1,000, for the record, go watch my other video, because I'd rather be collecting sealed than I would be collecting singles. But, all right, a big but, big old tookus. The opportunity for single market is still pretty high, and reserved list is still a safe place to put your money, because our reserve list cards going down right now? Yeah, but when a reserve list card goes down, it goes down maybe like a couple dollars. And then the second the scarcity goes through, because people are going to want to buy at the dip, if people buy at the dip, eventually that supply is going to drop again, and then the demand's going to go higher because people are going to want to buy them, and there's not going to be any there, so people are going to be able to sell them for a much higher point. The line goes up, and then you can sell them again for a higher price. For instance, that City of Shadows we were talking about earlier, when I first started collecting the Dark, that was a $175 card, and you can buy it right now for $140 before taxes and shipping. So, might be something to look into, if you know what I mean. But regardless, there's tons of stuff for you to look into. I mean, I'm talking tons of stuff. And I hope that you find something that works for you. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys enjoy, right? What have you been investing in as far as singles go? And more importantly, I want to make this clear, and I know this should have been a PSA at the beginning of the video, but I am not a financial advisor, okay? I don't provide financial advice. I do not have any degree in finance. I have not worked for a firm or anything of that matter. That is not the case, so take my advice with a grain of salt. I'm just a man who, sleeps with a little dragon plush in his bed. He's drinking boba. He's drinking boba over there, okay? But the second thing I want to talk about is, again, if you want to, and I went over this in my my box video, right? My investing in sealed product video. If you are planning on investing in Magic the Gathering, you need to have your life together first. Do not start investing in Magic the Gathering as like, oh yeah, I can slip $8 this way, or oh yeah, I got paid a little bit extra, I got a tip, I can buy this card or whatever. There are better things to invest your money into than Magic the Gathering. You should invest into things like your 401ks, your Roth IRAs, any of your retirement plans. Invest into ETFs. Invest into things that will grow your portfolio and be able to make you financially wealthy. So that way, when you have true fun money, you can spend it on Magic the Gathering. So, just something to think about. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate your support. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. And check out that Patreon. I have a Patreon in the description down below. We do have a new tier on that Patreon that I essentially get to open packs for you guys on a special video. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that and get your own special video dedicated to yourselves for supporting me at such a tier. So thank you so much. And remember, to make it a great day or not, the choice is up to you. I'll see you all soon. Nerd out.